What up, one and done CBB crew? This your boy Mike Holland at MC Holland 34, coming to you super early on a Valentine's Day. But we want to make sure we get tomorrow's slate in, which is the Saturday DraftKings DFS slate on the books. So Eric is in the back pushing buttons at Fantasy Now. Appreciate him taking some time to do that. We do have a 10-game slate that we'll be talking about, so we'll try to get you guys out of here probably in like 45 to 50 minutes. So thanks to you guys for joining us. If you have a question, a comment, make sure you hit the or make sure you hit the subscribe button. You can also hit that like button. That really helps the channel out. I believe we're up to 1,331 subs, so on our way to 1,400 in no time. And these slates are starting to get pretty big, and the prize pools are starting to get pretty nice. So make sure you check out all the content that we're doing. We don't just do DFS. We're doing recap stuff, bracket stuff. And speaking of brackets, just wanted to mention we have partnered up with BracketBids, and pretty excited this tournament season to be using them. If you haven't heard of them, they're changing the game when it comes to tourney time. So check out the details in the description on YouTube. It's BracketBids. Use the promo code BREAD for 40% off your activation fees for your league. And we're excited to be with them. And every show we'll kind of be talking about them and make sure we get a bunch of brackets out there for our partners out there. So having said that, let's dive into this thing. Don't think we have any comments outside of our boy Jay, who's jumped in the chat with the old fire emojis. We know he loves some fire emojis there, and that's what we're trying to do, trying to hit some commas, as he would say, and put some money in that bankroll over on DraftKings. So again, hit the like and subscribe button. Really helps the channel out. We appreciate everyone that already has done that. Like I said, if you have any questions, comments, this is more of a first look. So we'll be going game by game here. So 10 games, we got a $5K to first over on DraftKings and a $60 qualifier. Just kind of a quick overview. This slate is going to be pretty tough to break down because we only have one KenPom total over 150. And it happens to be at 151 points, and that's Washington traveling all the way to Penn State. So, look, a bunch of really strong defensive teams on the slate as well. Texas A&M, Tennessee, Houston. We have 4 totals under 140 implied points, a couple at 142. So, there's not like these huge totals that no Alabama or UNC teams on here for us to really attack. And some of the worst teams to roster, unfortunately, from a DFS perspective, are on the slate, and that's DePaul, Butler, Seton Hall, Florida State, just for different reasons, bench minutes, just kind of their pricing overall, and just their upside. So, it's going to be tough, but we like that, especially when you have 1,500 teams to beat for $5,000 and also a $60 qualifier. It makes it a lot easier to get different, so there's not going to be anything that I feel is going to be super chalky. We're also lacking a lot of studs. Like there's no Janai Broom, no Kalkbrenner, no Raynaud, no Cam Jones. There's really only Braden Smith. I mean, if you look at the names over 8.5, you'd be kind of shocked. It's McNeely, Osabor, Edgecombe, Fremantle, Ibisic, like John Tanji. It's kind of crazy. TKR, Amir, Sorber, PB Small, as Rody does not like the pay-ups on this one. So we'll dive in here for the rundown here as Bellyball jumps in saying, yo, what's up, Bellyball? Appreciate you joining, as the dog obviously is not a fan of this particular slate, but we're a fan of winning $5,000. So make sure you hit the like and subscribe buttons. We'll dive in here. What's up, Cam? Let's go. Heck yeah. Jeremy jumping in here. Man, you guys not used to us being on this early for a slate the next day, but here we are. So we'll dive into the rundown here. Arkansas +8 at Texas A&M, 138 implied total over on KenPom. This is an Arkansas squad that is getting up and down at 103rd in pace. Texas A&M 235th and really good defensively. So Arkansas only implied for 65 points. Aggies 6th in defensive efficiency. We'll have to mention Zvonimir Vistage. So obviously Calipari kind of figured out that playing this guy as a 30 minutes a game is pretty smart. This is a max price, though, and a tough matchup with a lot of bodies that the Aggies can throw at him in their front court. So he should probably still pop here if he plays 30 minutes because he has an outstanding fantasy per minute production and his rates are really good. So if we kind of get wind that he's going to be a little popular, I kind of want to be under the field. By popular, I mean 20-30% on this slate for a pay up is probably pretty popular. So I don't know that I want too much exposure. Just being on the road and with the Aggies really being good on the glass and also being really tough defensively, and then having like 4 bodies they can really throw at him. So Visage been playing really well lately at 8,900. Don't have a lot of interest in Thiero, $1,000 cheaper. John L. Davis is sitting there at 7,100. We know that when Boogie Flan went down, that his role was going to increase, the balls in his hands more, 35 plus minutes in 5 of the last 6. He has to take a bunch of shots now that Fland is out. So he's looking a little more comfortable, more of a contrarian, like mid-tier tourney type play with this matchup. But I think John L. Davis is certainly interesting. It's a pass for me on DJ Wagner, as I'm mostly a tournament player. Carter Knox, though, sitting here at 5,400 is just kind of interesting, right? He's, anything over 4x from somebody, under like a 5.5 tag is going to be pretty solid on this slate. So Knox sitting here 30 plus minutes and 6 straight, usually touching like 34, 35 minutes. So another benefactor of the Fland injury. 16.5% usage. You don't love that. And he doesn't really have supporting rates, so that's pretty annoying. I think, in order to kind of get to where we want to get to, we're probably going to have to spend down a little bit cheaper. So just it's hard to like anybody on the Arkansas side when they're traveling to Texas A&M and they're implied for 65 points. But when you flip it to the Aggie side here, these guys are actually relatively cheap, which is going to make them really interesting for tournaments. I mean, Wade Taylor sitting here at 6,900. We know he's an 8, 9K type player. He hasn't shot it well since the turn of the new year here in 2025. He's only shooting 39% from the field in 2025, but he still carries a 30% assist rate, a huge shot volume, 3% steal rate. I just think Wade Taylor, obviously at 6,900, is going to be one of the more popular options on this slate. So definitely will be clicking his name, as he has like 40 fantasy point type upside at this price tag. If you want to pivot or even maybe play Phelps with him, I don't mind it. Phelps' minutes haven't been as big as they were when Taylor was out, even at the beginning of the year, but he should still see 30 minutes here. Just a massive shot rate, 33%, leads the team, one of the tops in the country, a 20% assist rate, 4% steal rate. He hasn't shot it well either, but he's going to get double-digit attempts. I think I'm probably leaning towards playing one or the other on almost all of my tournament lineups, and then kind of pairing them with a Henry Coleman at 6,100, or just playing them as one-offs. But it seems like the lights kind of turned on for Coleman. Kind of a stat sheet stuffer per minute here recently. I mean, he has to be super effective, though. He's 125 offensive rating, because he doesn't get a lot of volume. So maybe a little more inclined in cash to be comfortable. But that he's probably going to get you right there at 4x, which when you look at the slate as a whole, it's like, man, finding 8 guys that are going to get 4x plus is going to be a premium on this one. So I think Henry Coleman is pretty solid here at 6,100. The other options like Washington Garcia, I mean, I'm just not too interested in them. They got a tough matchup, obviously on the other end with the Visage and Thiero, and they just don't do much on that side. So I think for me, pretty heavily exposed to Wade, some Zurich Phelps. I will have some Coleman in tournaments as a safer tournament type play and a stacking partner. And yeah, Cam, the Taylor Phelps stack is certainly interesting. You're playing 1,600 teams if you're playing the big one. So yeah, I think that's definitely viable. I'm more inclined to play a Taylor with like a Henry Coleman or a Phelps with a Henry Coleman. As we get down to it, and it's our early look, depending on how the roster construction looks, I may just end up kind of moving off Coleman, just due to the fact that, like, is there enough ceiling there in the tournament? But he's just been so good recently. He's playing a pile of minutes, which we haven't really seen before. So, yeah, I think for me on this side, it might be Taylor or Phelps. Jason B saying I'm usually half asleep for this. So excited to see. What's up, Jason, man? Glad to join you, man. So, yeah, it's kind of an interesting start to the slate here with this game. The Arkansas side, not too much I want to get into, and definitely want to get into those guards for Texas A&M. So we'll keep it churning here. Go to the second game here. Clemson -5 at Florida State. 143 implied total here. Clemson plays a super slow at 339th in tempo. They're getting paced up. Florida State plays top 50 in tempo at 48th in the country. Now, we did see this game play out the first time at Clemson, where they won by 20 points. It was 77-57. Chase Hunter had a nice game, 25 points, 3 boards, 2 assists. Malik Ewan had a double-double. He had 15 points and 10 rebounds. So when you look at the breakdown of this game, it looks like Clemson implied for 74 points on KenPom. Florida State implied for 69. So for Clemson, you're going to get a 3-ball boost. I mean, Florida State's just giving up the 3-ball in ACC play, 38%. Also, you know who's going to be on the floor for Clemson. The problem with Clemson is that the two guys that you love to get to in tournaments, they actually don't. This isn't a great matchup for them. Like Victor Locken is now max price. He's 8,100. If you had in the last couple of slates, you were loving it, especially that UNC slate, which everybody was on him, obviously. Sorry, Cam, and sorry, Jeremy. But look, he's still not playing more than 25 to 28 minutes, and FSU's really, really tough inside. Neither him or Shefflin had a good game against these guys. I know it was a 20-point blowout, but it was Chase Hunter that did all the damage to these guys. So, yeah, it's tough to pay 8,100 for Victor Locken when you know he's only going to play 26, 27 minutes. And now he's on the road. Like, that's terrifying. Shefflin is always interesting for tournaments just because he does so much. I mean, he had 6 assists, but he was only 1 for 5 from the field in the first one. And obviously this one got out of hand. So if we see a tighter game, I think I like Shefflin a little bit more at 8,000. Because obviously if we're playing closer to a 5-point game, I think Ian Shefflin here is a decent play. Chase Hunter sitting there at 7,800. I mean, he obviously crushed these guys, but more of a cash play at this tag, because when you think about Hunter, like, it's one of those things where even if he scores 25 real life points, which he did, like, he might not even pay off 7,800 because Shefflin and Locken, they eat up all the rebounds. They soak up most of the stocks. Shefflin's such a good passer that he's the one getting Chase Hunter open. Locken's a great passer too. So really like this Clemson team and their overall profile. I think they can do some damage in March for sure. So Chase Hunter, probably more of a cash piece. Dylan Hunter at 4,200, like, he's definitely seen a change in his role. So the brother of Chase Hunter here, and he's pretty cheap. He's a solid value option. He started the last 2 games. He's had 17 fantasy points in 27 minutes first time these two teams played. So I'm definitely looking at Dylan Hunter in this matchup. Maybe a little bit of Shefflin for some tournaments. I'm probably all the way off on Locken and Hunter in tournaments. And then when you flip it to the Florida State side, it's always 2 guys for me. I get sometimes Bowen, right? But for me, it's Jameer Watkins or Malik Ewan. Man, Jameer Watkins at this point, he's really just a cash play. We just don't ever see the tourney upside. 1, he fouls a lot. 2, it's like, the emergence of some of these other guys in the ancillary department are really hurting him. So he's not kind of giving you like 7, 8 boards and like 5, 6 assists all the time, or at least consistently. So he's in the player pool, Watkins, for tournaments. But I think he's better for like double ups and cash games. You can count on the major minutes. And that's really the only guy on this team that you can count on for major minutes, except for maybe Ewan recently. So Ewan's actually one of my favorite tournament plays on the slate. Obviously, he went for 15 and 10. That was in limited minutes against them last time. But you look at the last 2 games, and he has to stay out of foul trouble. And both him and Watkins have fouling issues. So Ewan at 8,200, if he's going to play 37, 35 minutes like he has in the last 2 games, and this game stays closer, like, he's going to probably blow past 35 fantasy points and get into the 40 fantasy point range. So you talk about 15 and 10 the first time they played. I mean, he's live for, something closer to 18 to 20 and with some stock upside here for Ewan. So I just find him very, very interesting for tournaments at home here. So, should help them out a little bit here with a really good Clemson team, but there's a chance that Clemson comes in here and blows them out. It's tournament only on that side. So that's the first 2 games. Let's see. Check out Jeremy chat. I was on him too. Yeah, Victor Lock and everybody was on him against UNC. I mean, we play bigs against UNC, right? That's just the thing. So make sure you guys hit the like and subscribe buttons. Make sure you guys go over to BracketBids.com. Use that promo code BREAD for 40% off. I mean, it's almost tournament time, guys. We got a couple of weeks left in February, and then a couple of weeks, into March, and all of a sudden we'll be hot on the heels with some brackets in our hands. Not long after that. So. Do us a favor. We appreciate everybody out there. Hit those like and subscribe buttons. We'll move on to the next game. DePaul plus 11 at Xavier, 147 implied total. Tempos are like, okay, it's a little bit of pace up for DePaul. I mean, Xavier plays at 111th. DePaul plays at 182nd tempo in the country. In the first matchup that we saw here, Xavier won on the road 77 to 63. This is the game where Fremantle, I believe he came back He was off the bench here, but he still had 20 and 10. CJ Gunn had 16 and 7 for DePaul. DePaul is projected to score 68 points here. Xavier, okay defensively. It's nothing scary, right? 55th in defensive efficiency. Right now, DePaul, they're playing some guys some big minutes right now because of injuries. You got Connor Enright out for the year. And it looks like, they're just trying to develop some of these guys for next year. So CJ Gunn at 7K, like a solid game in that first one. We just talked about 16 points, 7 rebounds, really shot dependent and rebound dependent. He doesn't do a lot else. They really need stocks for some upside or to collect some assists, but he's always looking for a shot. So for me at 7,000, CJ Gunn's more of on the road here, more of a cash type play because the minutes are going to be, 34 plus here. Him and Layden Blocker, I don't know, man. At 6,800, I think I'm just really in on the two guys that we saw play a pile of minutes that are a lot cheaper, and that's Isaiah Rivera and David Thomas. So Isaiah Rivera comes in at 5,200. He played 35 and 37 minutes in the last 2 games. He's taking double-digit shots. He's only 2 for 13 from 3. So if he gets a little bit of shooting regression here in a pace-up spot against Xavier, I think he's a fine tournament play at 5,200. And then you look at David Thomas, who I think he's going to be really popular on this slate. 31 and 26 minutes in the last 2, 15, 22 and a half fantasy points. Like you'll live with 15 fantasy points at 3,600 for sure on the Saturday slate here. He's up to a 24.5% shot rate in conference play. Like down the stretch in the Marquette game, like he was taking a ton of shots here. So, definitely David Thomas, man. Like his role is definitely growing. They want to get him out there. They want to get him exposed. He's taking a ton of shots. The other stats aren't really there. The ancillary production, the stock production, like we don't know. We just need to see more minutes from him. But if he's going to play 30 minutes, like it's going to be pretty hard to pass on this guy. As Cam Johnson. Speaking of tournaments, when we're getting a 2, oh man, we do need to do that, man. We've been doing so much lately with trying to be more active on the socials and doing all kinds of recap shows now and trying to cover more slates this year. So yeah, I'll fire that up, man. We'll get that going. We used to do that last year, so good looking out, Cam. I'll try and get like a 30 piece or something, $2 or $3 in there. Jason B, Thomas Rivera stack is a huge salary saver and could be money. Yeah, it absolutely could be. It's a pace up spot for DePaul. They could get absolutely blown out here, but that doesn't matter because Rivera and Thomas come off the bench and they still play big minutes regardless. So they're going to be out there. So that is something that I'm looking at as well. Thanks for pointing that out, Jason B. So I'll probably go 50% playing them together, 25%, each way. But I'm probably going to have one or the other on every single lineup. So good call there. All right, we'll flip over to the Xavier side. Even though DePaul's terrible on defense, 3-ball boost here for Xavier. DePaul's giving up 37.5% from 3. They gave up 9 for 20 in the first matchup. Xavier has a stock party opportunity. They had 6 steals in the first matchup. They didn't have any blocks, but Xavier doesn't really have any, elite shot blockers, but are live to pick up a couple of blocks in this one. So an upward trajectory for Xavier to get, anywhere between 9 and 10 stocks in this game. So Zach Fremantle, he's now all the way up to 8,800. This is a smash spot for him, but obviously the price is up. He went 20 and 10, right? He's not really a guy that ever goes for more than like 40 plus fantasy points. He's more of he's a better real life player than he is a 9K like tourney type fantasy guy. So it's still a juicy team total here. I think he's a lot better in cash because you just kind of know, but if the game blows out, like that's kind of terrifying. So yeah, I don't know that I'll be using much as that. And I want to get into this Xavier side, but when you look at the pricing on these guys, they're all max price. Like Ryan Conwell, 7,300, super shot dependent. Dalen Swain, 7,000. Like those guys just they're priced correctly for like ceiling type games. So if you can figure out the one guy that can maybe go 4.5x here, that could be money here. Dante Maddox is playing out of his mind right now. This guy is absolutely flamethrowing right now from 3. He's also 12 for 12 from the free throw line. He's at 34 and 39 fantasy points in the last 2 games. Completely shot dependent. He's now 6,100. The first time they played, 14 fantasy points in 20 minutes, but he does come off the bench. If it does blow out, it's interesting. I want to know if you guys are interested in playing some Maddox at 6,100. It feels like a chase here. Would I be shocked if he put up 30 fantasy points again? No. But there's that opportunity where he just doesn't light it up. But this is DePaul, right? They give it up. So maybe I'm doing it wrong. I want to be a little under the field here on Dante Maddox. So he's definitely interesting for sure. Cam says he's fading Maddox. Okay, I'm playing McKnight. Yeah, I got off that train a while ago, man. That's it's not a fun train to ride. So talking about Davion McKnight, who, like, the rates, it's like if you make some shots, he's got a little bit of assist rate there. I don't know, man. Like it feels kind of messy. So all in all, for a team total of 80, like I don't know that I'm clicking Fremantle. Maybe I'll click Conwell in the tournament in case he just goes super hot, but I don't, and a few on Maddox in case, he kind of just keeps up what he's been doing. But outside of that, it doesn't feel great to kind of dive into this, into these players, and really even I'm pretty terrified to stack this game, especially with a 11-point Ken Palm spread on the road for DePaul. So, all right, we'll swing over to the next matchup. Vanderbilt plus 14 at Tennessee. This one will go by a little bit quicker. 138 implied total. Vanderbilt 60th in pace. Tennessee 340th. So a contrast in styles here. Contrast in styles and defense too. Vanderbilt will give it up. Tennessee will not give it up. The first matchup, Tennessee lost by 1 on the road here. So revenge spot here. There's a 14-point spread. This is liable to be a 20 to 25-point blowout. Ziegler in the first game, 16-3-10. Milicic 16-5. You had Edwards with 18 points, 2 boards, 3 assists, and then Vernon Carey had a nice game. 14 on Vernon Carey. Oh God, name escapes me now, but he had 14 and 10 here. So, man, I don't know. Like Vanderbilt 62 implied total. I'm probably crossing them all the way off. I mean, I don't know. Like it just, you're not going to be making a lot of money when you're playing teams against at Tennessee, especially a squad that's 34th in bench minutes. They don't like to play their guys many minutes. So Jalen Carey, obviously, there it goes. Escaped my name there. His name escaped me there. But Jalen Carey, if you want to play him, he's probably going to project well because he played well against them, and they kind of need his size inside to be able to do anything against this team. So, I think he's a little interesting, but mostly a cross off on this Vanderbilt side. The Tennessee side, the core 3 pieces in play. Ziegler more for cash here at 9,200. I was hoping his price would be under 9K. He does have 40 fantasy point upside. You just kind of need it all to go right for him from the field, at least, because he's going to rack up 8 to 10 assists in this game. So we could definitely see him go 16 and 10 again and produce more than one stock, which, we could get. We're live for, 3 steals here. So definitely an interesting turning option, although I think he's a little bit better suited at the price tag that he's at for cash games. Milicic at 7,400. I definitely like him for tourneys every time he's in this like 65 to 7,500 range. 40 fantasy point upside as well here. He's probably going to play 30 plus minutes if the game still stays close with 10 minutes to go in the second half. Just solid rates across the board. He can get you some stocks. He can get you some assists. He's live for a double-double. And then Chaz Lanier, I stopped clicking his name after the Baylor game, but he can always go nuts from the field. He has to because he doesn't do anything else. His ceiling in conference play has been 33.5 fantasy points. So, yeah, I mean, he's closing in on 5X at 6,900, but that's what you're talking about, an absolute ceiling here because no steals, no blocks, a few rebounds, definitely not assisting because he's taking a ton of shots. So, I mean, the Tennessee side, another side, 76 implied total. Like, we're going to make some tough decisions here because not a lot of these guys are going to feel like great clicks at their max prices. But Ziegler for cash, maybe a little interest in tournaments, Milicic for tournaments. And then Lanier, I'll recommend him for tournaments. I probably won't be playing him. So I believe that is 4 games down. Just make sure you guys hit those like and subscribe buttons. Belly Ball's crossing out of Vandy. Lanier's going to break the slate at this price soon. Yeah, I mean, breaking the slate, I typically 6 to 7X to break a slate. I don't know these. I mean, yeah, could he score 40 points? Yeah, but I mean, probably going to have 1 rebound, no assist, and no stocks. So, I mean, that would have to be the path for him. So I just, not for me. If somebody wants to try it and look for that 35 real life point game, go for it. I just much rather use Ziegler and Milicic whenever I play Tennessee. So I appreciate the interaction though, Belly Ball. Hey man, if you play him, I'm hoping he goes off for you. So we'll flip over to the next game, which is another kind of weird game here. You got Wisconsin +4 at Purdue. 150 implied total here. Both teams, I mean, they're not slow, but they're not fast at all. Wisconsin implied for 73 points. Purdue's 29th in defensive efficiency, but they can also struggle guarding inside. I mean, they're giving up 54% from two. The problem is Wisconsin doesn't really bang the ball inside much. So really only play I'm looking at here. I'm not playing Tanji at 9K. Like I get Stephen Cross sitting there at 6,600. Been playing a little bit better, but I just don't love it. Blackwell, I guess, would be the one guy I'd consider, at least in my player pool. He's a guy that can hurt you inside and outside. Really shot dependent though. Kind of a large field only, right? Like in case he thinks he gets hot on the road, but I'm probably not going to be clicking anybody over here on this Wisconsin side. Let me know in the chat if you think that anybody on the Wisconsin side is interesting. On the Purdue side, it's Braden Smith and TKR, of course. Wisconsin been pretty solid defensively, 35th in the country. Purdue's alive to grab some shot blocking here, but they don't have a ton of shot blockers. So Braden Smith at 10-8, third on KenPom for the player of the year, number one in assist rate, top 40 steal rate. He's going to play every minute. But like when he's close to Janai Broom, like Janai Broom can put up 66, right? And pretty easily. Braden Smith, like at 10-8, we're going to need him to, is even 50 going to hurt? I think on this side, it could hurt a little bit, right? Just because we're talking about like over 4X being money here. But, if he pulls out a 42 here at 10-8, that's probably not going to get it done for you unless you really nail the value. And also if you get some of those busts from the 9K range, because a lot of those 9 and 8K guys, they have 40 fantasy point upside. So that's kind of the question, is what to do with Braden Smith's one of the keys here. I'm not paying 9,800 for TKR. Like there's just no way. Like he's been great this year. I'm surprised. He's sitting at number 6 on the KenPom player of the year. I mean, leads the team in usage, but his other rates, they don't really support this type of like tag. So he's kind of like one of these just kind of, I feel like an anomaly this year for him. Got to be ultra efficient from the field because his shot rate's so high. But he could, he could trick his way into a double-double, which would obviously help to pay off that $9,800 price tag. But ultimately, I'm just not in love. And this is the second highest KenPom total we have on the slate. But max prices on the Purdue side, I don't play anybody else on Purdue because everything goes through Smith and TKR, and then Wisconsin. You're getting almost max prices for these guys. So Blackwell in the player pool. So we'll slide on over here. Washington +6 at Penn State, 152 implied total. This game I really find interesting and probably going to get myself pretty heavily invested in this one. The tempo is pretty nice here. Washington plays at the 117th fastest tempo. Penn State 52nd in the country. So Washington implied for 73 implied points here, but they are traveling to Penn State. Penn State's been so bad defensively. They're 15th in the Big Ten, giving up nearly 114 points per 100 possessions. So look, the shooting boost here for Washington, Penn State's giving up nearly 38% from 3, 56.5% from 2, a rebounding boost for Washington too, and a stock boost. Like when you look at these metrics, like there's a lot of fantasy points that can be had here for Washington if they're able to kind of solve the road travel here. So the problem with Washington is 109th in bench minutes. You're on the road. Yeah, you just don't know the rug pull on some of these guys. The one guy you know is going to be on the floor for a long time, if it's not a blowout, is Gray Dosabor. He's at 8,600. Just think this is an intriguing turning spot for him. He draws a ton of fouls, and Penn State from that position, like they're not a team that fouls a lot, but their big men foul a ton. YKN fouls a ton. I think he's right at 6 fouls per 40. And then Nze is at 6 fouls per 40. So we know Osabor, he has to do everything for this team. Just great rates. He has double-double beside this one. Ballo and Garcia recently have had some pretty big games against Penn State. So I find him very interesting for tournaments. Tyler Harris, more of a cash guy at 6,900. When you kind of look at the production, right, like 26, 28, 32, 34. It needs to be efficient from the floor. And he definitely can be in this one. I just render him more of a cash target in this situation. I really like kind of what the guard could potentially give us here. Makai Mason and I'm still going to call him Zoom Diallo, but they say you're at 5,500 and 4,700. Both got into foul trouble last game. It actually helped me because I played DJ Davis at 4K last slate, but not expecting both to have 2 fouls by like the about 6 minutes into the game here. So look, before he had foul trouble, Makai Mason played 35, 37, 36 minutes. Look, his rates aren't great, but you do like the 21% shot rate, and he's on the floor, for that amount of time. Like he could fall over some of these ancillary stats. So I definitely like the game environment for him. I think this is a nice bounce back spot for either one of these guys. So I'll be using one of them in a tournament. Diallo at 4,700. He's even more interesting because he dropped $900, and he's just such a key factor for this team. Ultra talented, 25% shot rate, 25% assist rate. I just think he's a really, really solid value option at 4,700. If you want to pluck around a DJ Davis too, he's kind of in the player pool too for value. But it feels like Washington here, man. Like pretty interesting because this is going to have a lot of possessions in this game. So definitely like Lusabor, Harris is pretty solid floor, and then Mason and Diallo for tournaments. Over here on the Penn State side, 79 implied total for Penn State. Washington 16th out of 18 teams. They're giving up almost 115 points per 100 possessions here in Big Ten play, and they're giving up 38% from 3 and 57% from 2 in conference play. So yeah, I think this game has a chance to really light it up on the fantasy side, and Penn State also a major stock upside. Kind of what we talked about. There's going to be some turnovers here. There's going to be some block shots in this game. Washington is dead last in the Big Ten in both opponent steal percentage and opponent shot blocking percentage. So lots to like here, but it's Penn State, and it seems like every time we play these Penn State guys, something terrible goes. So, I mean, Ace Baldwin, 7,700. Cash lock, tourney upside here. We've all been burned. There's been 3-4 slates that I can remember off the top of my head where it's like you just play Ace Baldwin and he didn't do anything. So I would imagine he's going to be popular with optimizers and things like that, and just everybody knowing that his floor is really safe with high upside for 40 plus fantasy points if he's knocking down shots. You do like the minutes have been there for him. It's still kind of a scary click, but tournaments and cash, man. Like he's just going to be on the floor in a tight game here, and it's a great game environment, and really he profiles nicely against these guys. So YKN at 6,600. I don't know what his deal is. He won't stop fouling. He's an awesome per minute player. When you look at what he did against the non-con, right? He really crushed those guys, and we've talked about that. In Big Ten play, he's just not been great. Some of it's been fouls. Some of it's just been some of the guys that he's playing against, right? Going up against some elite guys. This isn't Northern Illinois, where he transferred from. So at 6,600, he's always just kind of an interesting tournament play. If you want to play a Baldwin and Niederhauser together, I could see them, both going off, or I could see them, both not doing anything. So it's kind of one of those weird slates here. Zach Hicks, DeMarco Dunn, they're in play, more cash viable. Probably Zach Hicks is going to pop a little bit on projections. I just don't love playing him. I think at DeLeon here at 3,700, boom bust value option. Like his role has diminished. He lost a starting role to Damian Dunn. To Damian Dunn, DeMarco Dunn. But single-digit fantasy points, even though you're playing 17 to 24 minutes in the last 4 games. This could be a get-right spot for him, 20 minutes. Like, he just needs to knock down some shots. But when you're getting David Thomas, at pretty much the same price tag, who's going to get a bunch of, guaranteed shots in the minutes. Like, it's, just DeLeon is more of like if you're going stars and scrubs as a second option in a field of 1,600 teams, and an 80-point implied total is just kind of interesting. So I want to know from the chat if you guys are interested, how interested you guys are in this particular game, how many pieces you want. I'm looking to probably get at least 3 in every tournament lineup. And it's definitely room for more just based on the pricing here. So Let's see. Nobody in the chat, man. Drop your questions. Make sure you first time here, hit the like and subscribe button. When you hit subscribe, you're able to ask questions up in our chat. We got a great community here. We ball out DFS 2, 3, sometimes 4 times a week. So make sure you head over to BracketBids.com when you're filling out your bracket. We partnered up with those guys. It's going to be a lot of fun. And then we'll dive into some one and done $2 or $3 tournaments probably later tonight over on DraftKings, so we can have some fun with you guys. But always appreciate everything. Trying to get up to 1,400 subs, hopefully before the end of the season here. And we just appreciate all the support as Eric hitting that we out jeer here with the 100s out there. So. All right, I think we got 3 games left, so we'll dive through these real quick. We got West Virginia +8 at Baylor, 136 implied total, both tempos sub 300. West Virginia implied for 64 points. Baylor's okay defensively. They can get hurt a little bit by the 3 ball, giving up 35% in Big 12 play. Javon Small sitting there, probably the only realistic option I'm looking at 9,500. I think he's an interesting tournament option because we've seen Javon Small go completely bonkers. This is on the road. There's not going to be a ton of possessions. I don't think he's going to be owned at all for that matter. So he definitely has to make the most of every opportunity while he's out there, but he does have the ball in his hands every single possession. The spend up options that I talked about earlier, they're all kind of like, we don't have those, Dickinsons and Reynauds, Janai Brooms, right? We don't have those guys on the slate. That's outside of like a Braden Smith. So, Javon Small for a large field tournament, definitely interesting. But I'm not really finding myself getting to Hansberry and all these other guys. Powell, just 2-shot dependent. So, especially when you're applied for 64 points and Small's going to have the ball in his hands the whole game here. So, just an interesting pay-up option here. Baylor, we know Josh Ojanwa is out for the year. We know West Virginia's been pretty solid defensively. They're smaller at the 5 spot. I don't know how they're going to guard Norchad with Hansberry. They can probably pull Norchad away from the basket, though, so that makes it a little scary. But I would imagine Eduardo Andre plays a little bit more in this one. But Norchad here, he's max price, $10K. I think he should smoke these dudes. 35-plus minutes, right? If the game stays tight. Kind of the thing here is you know with Norchad, right? Like you're gonna post your double. You're gonna get that. Can he do? Can he get you 2 or 3 stocks? Can he facilitate a couple of assists? Can he be efficient from the floor? Those are the things that we look for from Norchad. So I definitely like him. I'll definitely be using him in tournaments. I think all of these kind of Baylor guys are interesting for tournaments. BJ Edgecombe at 8,700, definitely boom bust. He's got 40 fantasy point upside. So really tapped into it, this year after a kind of a slower start. But you save $1,300 off of max price. Omir. It's a tough matchup though. Maybe some shares here of some Edgecombe. Let me know in the chat how much you like Omir and Edgecombe, what you guys are doing with them. I find someone that's interesting because Josh O is out is Celestine here at 4,200. I hate these guard eligible. I wish he was Ford eligible. But we're really only playing 7 guys. So foul trouble for Norchad would absolutely give him a bigger path to like 20, 25 minutes. I mean, this guy, he has to hit his threes because he doesn't do much else. So more of a secondary value type play, more of a, you're trying to outsmart 1,600 people type play, especially when we have, some value that's a lot safer with Thomas, who we kind of talked about a little bit earlier, and then Dylan Hunter. So, most of these other ones are going to be secondary type cash plays. So that'll pretty much do it for this Baylor side. We'll flip on over to an interesting game. Georgetown +4 at Butler. 142 implied total. I'm a little shocked. I don't know. Georgetown has better athletes than Butler. This game is not going to be slow, but it's not going to be fast. Both sitting, in the close to 200 in tempo. First matchup we saw, Georgetown won 73-70, and that was at home, right? So I guess, going to Butler, right? Epps did miss that game. Sorber had an okay game, 19 points, 5 boards, 2 assists, 4 stocks. PV had a nice game, 19 points, 9 rebounds, 2 assists, 3 steals. This was the BizJack game where he had 17, 5, and 5. So I'm more inclined to use the Georgetown side. As we talked about, we have like Butler, we have some of these uglier teams on the slate with Seton Hall. So not going to be using much on their side, but Georgetown with Thomas Sorber, he's 10-2, and he is a guy I pay up that can absolutely smash any slate. And I don't know how they're going to guard him again. This matchup is so juicy for him. He's live to go 20-10 in this one with stocks. So I'll definitely be having some exposure to Thomas Sorber in my tournament lineups. Now that Micah Peavy is 9,400, that's a little bit of a tougher click, although we saw him nearly go 20-10 in this spot with 3 stocks. So he's in line. He's been playing really well lately, 42, 44, 39 fantasy points in the last 3. It's just because of the max price makes it a little bit tougher, but he's live to play all 40 minutes in this one. So at 9,400, I'm not going to ignore him. I find him and Sorber to be interesting tournament plays, right? Because I feel like one of them is definitely going to go for 40 in this spot. So it's just that 69 implied total from Ken Palm's kind of throwing me off a little bit. But both of those guys are just so heavily involved in everything that this team does. Now, the whole Epps thing, and I'm sure, everybody's over the Jaden Epps thing. Caleb Williams. So Epps, whatever, hurt, came back, hurt again, came back last game, played 20 minutes, but he came off the bench. So Caleb Williams started, and he played 35 minutes in the last game. His rates, they don't really support this major upside. I mean, look at he had 19 and a half fantasy points in 36 minutes with Epps out last time. He's got to be super efficient. He was $400 cheaper last time too. He was in that 3K range. So more of a secondary value piece at 4,300, especially the fact that Jaden Epps is 4,300, and earlier this year he was 9K. This feels like kind of a Riley Kugel type situation from years past. Yes, in tournaments, I will take shots on Jaden Epps. I could just be burning my money, but I know the talent that he has. If he starts right at 4,300, that's really, really tough to not play him at 4,300 if he starts. If he comes off the bench, it's a little easier at 4,300. And I know everybody's been burned. I've been burned. I've lost a lot of money on Jaden Epps. So I get it. But the fact is if he starts, he's live to play 30 plus minutes. And at 4,300, you get him, you play him and David Thomas or him and Rivera. You're going to have a lot of salary to go up and get a bunch of guys. So yeah, I mean, it's ugly. It's scary. We'll have to wait for the news. And we'll see how our stomach feels in the morning when we click his name. But we'll flip it over to the Butler side. Applied for 73. Georgetown's really good defensively, which is why I'm kind of shocked here. I don't love the upside of the Butler, the two guys Pierre Brooks and Jamel Telfort. But Finley Bishak, I mean, he had the nice game, 31 fantasy points in 30 minutes a few games ago against him at 5,600. Tournament only for me, right? He's shown some upside in other Big East games this year, but really just a large field consideration only for Finley Bishak for me. Kind of a tougher click on this one here. Darren jumping in. Stupid Valentine's Day. Yeah, my Valentine's Day will start here a little bit later. So appreciate you joining, man. Taking some time out, doing this one early, so that way we can be ready bright and early to get it on. And also, if you guys don't know, I'll be live on Sirius XM Radio Channel 87 tomorrow with Dr. Roto talking about the slate and talking about college hoops. So that is going to be at 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 o'clock Central. So looking forward to that. But last couple of games here, and they're kind of ugly. Houston -2 at Arizona, 138 implied total. Houston so slow, great defensively. Arizona really fast, but pretty solid defensively. I don't have a lot of interest in even though they're paced up, implied for 71, like Max Price, Roberts, using Cryer, they're all cash type plays due to the pace. I think Emmanuel Sharp for tournaments is probably the most interesting. He's 4,600. He's missed the last 2 games. He missed the 2 games prior. Returned last game he started. He played 25 minutes. He had 14.5 fantasy points. His role has been reduced due to injuries over the last month. Been out a couple of times, and they've been playing some bench guys a little bit more in that time. So, Arsenault, Malik Wilson's been playing. So I just find that if he starts, this game stays tight. It's a pace-up spot. He takes a ton of threes. He's a 3D kind of guy. I feel like he's definitely allowed to get 25 fantasy points pretty easily in this spot. But if his minutes are going to be limited to 25, it's going to be a little bit tougher for him to get there, when he was rocking high 20s, low 30s earlier in the season. So we'll kind of see. I'm going to take some shots on him. On this Arizona side, I mean, Love 7,600, no. Bradley 7,100, no. Like Vassar and Awaka against this front line, it's all these guys are tough clicks. They're not going to project well. I don't know that anybody's going to play these guys, so they'll be super, super contrarian. Just probably not for me here in this ugly total. So that'll take us here to the last game. UConn -10 at Seton Hall, 134 implied total. Both teams sub 320 in tempo. So really slow game, but UConn should have the efficiency to run up a score to 72 points or more. Seton Hall very poor on defense, last in the Big East in defensive efficiency, giving up 40% from 3. Good luck with McNeely, Caravan, almost 60% inside. Lord, please don't let it be Terrace Reed winning somebody at 1% a bunch of money. But McNeely, we got to talk about him. He's 8,500. He torched the slate the other night. Had that huge game against Creighton. Just an awesome player. This environment sucks. Like, there are not going to be a lot of possessions in this one. So if you chase it. If you beat me with McNeely, he's live to score 20 plus real live points again. I wouldn't be shocked if he scored 30 against these guys, but man, he's gonna have to be really efficient with the ball, and also like some of these other guys aren't gonna really they're not gonna be involved if he's gonna have that type of game in this one. So Alex Caravan, definitely an awesome pivot, $1,200 cheaper. Love him as a tournament play, but also the environment, right? So all these guys rendered kind of tourney plays. I've probably click his name a few times just because, he's an 8K type player for sure. Hassan Diarra, we got to figure out what's going on with this. Undisclosed injury, sitting here at 4,700. He did play and start last game, only played 7 minutes, but he was playing high 20s, right? 4,700. Decent matchup, right? The rates are pretty good when he starts to get into the high 20s. So we'll have to pay attention to this. More of a secondary value play right now until we get some news on this. But yeah, I find all these guys interesting for tournaments. McNeely, Caravan, Diarra, even Terrace Reed. But you flip it over here to the Seton Hall side at 62 implied total. Isaiah Coleman at 8,300. He'll take 20 shots. Now, I don't know if they're going to go in this game. Solid ancillary production, too, to go with it. 3% steal rate. 30 fantasy point upside, but he's 8,300 in this game environment. This is not conducive to probably a ton of fantasy points. So probably a pass for me on Coleman. I'll probably pass it on Garway Dual as well. I think Jasheem Felton at 3,800. Secondary type value play. This guy played 40 minutes last game. All 40 at Georgetown. 13 fantasy points. His rates are terrible. Part of that is because Coleman takes every shot on this team. But they want to develop him. So at 3,800, I don't mind. You're playing 1,600 teams. You're going to get a guy that plays 40 minutes. If he knocks down a couple of shots, falls over some ancillary production, like you're cooking. So I'll be rotating him along with all my other secondary value pieces on this slate. And we got some news here. Optimism about Diarra playing 3 hours ago. Yeah, he would have to start. Or at least I got to have some type of clearance on that. That's probably a little too risky on this slate, especially in an ugly game environment. So that'll wrap up all 10 games. We'll jump into a couple of cores here for cash and tourney. Talk about a few things that we got going on as Ty jumps in, talking about Wisconsin Purdue going to be a movie. And McNeely's been a stud lately. Yep, Darren. Cool. All right, let's dive in here for cash games. So for cash games, obviously looking for guys with a higher floor. We obviously want some upside there, and I'm not saying these guys can't be played in tournaments because I'll be using a couple of them in tournaments, but they're a lot safer. You're playing like smaller single entry stuff, playing double ups, things like that. You got to feel really good about where they're at. So I got to go with the guy Ziegler. Just that implied total revenge game against Vanderbilt from earlier in the year at home. He's 9,200. He had 16 points, 10 assists against them. He only had one stock. Like, I definitely feel like his floor is going to be super high in this matchup. The upside at 9,200 for him is a little tapped unless he shoots it really well from the field. So I'll be playing him right there in cash or like smaller single entries here. Ace Baldwin at 7,700. Like, he's going to play 35 to 40 minutes. Awesome floor here. Great game environment. Nice team total. Ryan Conwell, nice game environment. Like going to shoot a ton of threes. So 7,300, he's pretty solid. I just don't know that that turning up. He's going to grab 9 or 10 rebounds this time. So we were pretty safe on that for tournaments. And then Dylan Hunter feels pretty safe for cash as far as a value play. David Thomas obviously feels safe too. So you could play either one, but Hunter, just with this new role, at 4,200, played pretty well against Florida State last time. Feel pretty good about him at 4,200 for at least 12 to 16 fantasy points. So I'll leave you a 5.4 per player here. Obviously, you can play these guys together. I would just, these are kind of core pieces when you're building out cash games to use 2 or 3 of them. Over here on the tournament side. So for tournaments, obviously looking for ceiling. Look, this is Braden Smith, right? But decide what to do with him. If you're not playing Braden Smith, then obviously you want to play one of these other studs up here that have his type of ceiling, which Norchad Amir and Thomas Sorber definitely have. I love the matchup against West Virginia for Amir. And then Sorber, the way they profile, it's like, I don't know why these guys could have massive games. So yeah, you're paying 5 figures for them, but if Braden goes for 42 and one of these guys goes for, 46, 47, you're feeling pretty good about it. So definitely Braden up at the very top if you find 2 to 3 value pieces, but Amir and Sorber definitely interesting for tournaments. I do like this like mid 8K range for some of ththese forwards. Malik Ewan, we talked about him and his profile, what he did against Clemson last time, the fact that he's playing like 37 minutes now. Great Osabor, probably going to get fouled a ton by those centers over at Penn State. He's 8,600. Definitely like him here. Definitely going to be using one of those Aggie guards, Wade Taylor at 6,900 or Zurich Phelps at 6,600. And David Thomas for tournaments, pretty much going to be locking him in. He's safe as well as it carries a ton of upside. So taking a ton of shots, like 25% shot rate in conference play for them. And he's playing 30 minutes now. So you love that. So that leaves you 5.3K per player left up on that. So Darren's talking about, no, it's not on the slate. Actual game where one is at stake. Mail TV says Bama bench could make tourneys. Oh, yeah, the the huge game, right? Auburn and Bama. It's at home for Bama, so gotta like them. Gotta love the way they play. They have the front court pieces, Amourier and Grant Nelson. But they got bodies that they can throw at Broom. They have awesome shooting off the bench too. So yeah, definitely gonna be a fun game to watch. But all right, so make sure you guys hit those like and subscribe buttons. Remember tomorrow morning, channel 87 Sirius XM Radio. I'll be on the radio talking about this slate and all things college hoops with Dr. Roto, who happens to be our who we write for, who we work for here over here on this channel. So absolutely love that. Join me there for that. Appreciate it, Belly Ball. Make sure you guys go over to BracketBids. Start getting your leagues activated there. Use the promo code BREAD for 40% off your league activation fees. And yeah, I guess there's only probably one thing left to do after you guys hit the like and subscribe buttons. If you're listening afterwards, make sure you do that as well. And that's to get this bread.
Thanks for stopping by the office. Get your fantasy prescription by subscribing to the channel and checking out drroto.com. And until the next visit, be well and take care.